Creating extraordinary success in business and life is absolutely possible. That means more income, more freedom, and more energy for what you value most without the hustle or burnout. I'm Laura Flood, certified success and high performance coach, CEO for over 30 years, and a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur. I've built a profitable, sustainable business while prioritizing my family, my health, and my happiness, and I'm here to help you do the same. This is the Redefining Success podcast, where I'll share the strategies, tools, and the mindset shifts to help you grow with intention, live a life you love, and create lasting happiness, wealth, and freedom without losing yourself in the process. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Redefining Success podcast. One of the things that I've always loved about entrepreneurs and high achievers is how we think bigger. As a high achiever, you don't stay in one place for very long. You build something and almost automatically you start to see what else is possible. You start thinking about how to grow it, expand it, and how to take it to the next level. That way of thinking is part of what creates your success. It's what allows you to see opportunities that other people don't always see. It keeps you moving, always improving, and building something that continues to evolve. If you're anything like me, that continuous forward focus, it feels normal. It feels productive, like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. What's interesting is how that same strength can shape your experience of success in a way that you don't always notice. You can hit a goal that once felt really significant, and within a very short period of time, your mind has already moved on to what's next. You build something that's working, and instead of sitting in that for even a little while, you've already started thinking about how to make it better. Or you reach a level where you once only dreamed of, and it quickly becomes your new baseline. From there, the focus shifts again. I've seen this in my business so many times over the years. There have been times when I've reached goals that I thought about for so long, and instead of feeling a sense of completion, my attention went straight to what I wanted to do next. It wasn't something that I had to think about, it just happened. The bar moved, and I kept going. That's a powerful way to operate, but it's also something that can create a very specific experience internally if you're not aware of it. You can be making real progress and still feel like you're working toward a goalpost that's always moving. You can be doing well and still feel like there's so much more for you to prove. Or you can be building something meaningful and still feel like you're in the middle of getting there. That's what I want to talk about today. There's a concept that explains this in a really clear way, and it comes from the book, The Gap and the Gain. It's this idea that you can measure your progress in two different directions. You can measure it forward based on where you want to go, or you can measure it backwards based on where you started. And from what I see, most high achievers are naturally wired to measure forward. That creates growth. It fuels our ambition, and it's really what keeps us building. But it also creates a constant sense of being just short of where you want to be, even when you've already accomplished a lot. So when you start to shift how you measure, even slightly, your experience will begin to change. You're still moving forward and building while you're able to recognize what you've created in a way that actually lands. And that combination changes everything. And that's what we're going to get into today. That forward way of thinking that we just talked about, it doesn't turn off once you reach a certain level. If anything, it gets stronger. As you grow, your standards grow with you. What used to feel like a big goal, now it just starts to feel normal. What once felt exciting becomes expected. And when something becomes expected, you don't relate to it the same way anymore. You don't look at it as progress. You just look at it as where you are right now. And from there, your mind naturally starts to look ahead again. It starts asking what's next, or how can this be better? Where can this go from here? That process is part of what creates expansion. It's also the reason so many high achievers rarely feel like they've arrived anywhere. I've seen this in my own business more times than I can count. There were points where I had created something that I had worked towards for years. And within a very short period of time, it just felt like it was the starting point for the next level. I've always been really grateful and excited and proud of what I've built, but my perspective would always adjust. The result didn't change, but my relationship to it did. And once that shift happens, it's very easy to overlook how much you've actually done. You keep moving, building, and raising the bar. And without realizing it, you start measuring yourself against a moving target. That's the idea of where the gap really comes into play. It's measuring yourself against where you think you should be by now or where you want to go next. And the problem is when you're always measuring that way, there's always going to be distance. There's always something ahead of you that hasn't been reached yet. So even when you're doing well, it can still feel like you're in the middle of getting there. I see this all of the time in conversations with clients. They'll tell me about what they've built, and most of the time it's really impressive. It's consistent and it's something that they've worked really hard for. And almost immediately after they share it, they shift into how they're not where they want to be yet, what they haven't done, or what they still need to figure out. It happens so quickly when they're saying it, they don't even notice that they're doing it. And I understand it because I've done the same thing. When everything is measured against what's ahead, the present starts to feel like a stepping stone instead of something you actually experience. And that's the part most people don't see. They think the solution is to just reach that next level. But what changes is how you relate to the level that you're already at. And this is where the other side of that concept becomes really important. Looking at where you started and what you've already created, and letting that sit and register in a way that actually lands. That doesn't slow you down. It gives you a different foundation as you keep building. Every once in a while, you'll hear someone talk about something they've built, and you can feel it in how they say it. There's a level of presence in it. You can tell they're still moving forward, they're still thinking about what's next, but they're also able to recognize what they've created in a way that actually feels good. And that's a very different experience. And it's not something that happens automatically. It really comes from being willing to pause long enough to notice what's already there. I remember having conversations with clients when we would have to slow things down and look at what they've built over the last year. We would take a look at all of the decisions they made, the consistency that they created, and all of the growth that happened, even in the areas that didn't feel obvious at the time. And as they started to say it out loud, something would shift. They could see it. They would then realize that they had done more than they've been giving themselves credit for. They would recognize that the version of themselves from a year ago would see their current reality right now very differently. That awareness changed how they experienced their progress. It really gave them something solid to stand on as they kept moving forward. And that's what most people are missing. Not more effort or more goals, but a way to actually let their progress register. When you begin to include that, even in a small way, things start to feel different. You're still growing and expanding, and you're not constantly measuring yourself against something that hasn't happened yet. There's more stability in how you think, more confidence in how you move. You're not looking for proof that you're doing it right. You can see it. So that's where the idea of the gain comes in. It's not something that you have to force yourself into. It's something that you begin to notice where you started, what you've created, and who you've become in the process. And when that becomes part of how you measure your progress, everything starts to feel more grounded. You're still moving forward. You just don't feel like you're chasing something the whole way there. I want to talk about why sometimes success doesn't feel the way you thought it would. Because there's another layer to this that becomes more noticeable the longer you operate at a high level. And it has a lot to do with the expectations you naturally hold for yourself. You're used to expecting a lot. That's part of how you built what you have. It shows up in how you think, how you make decisions, and how you follow through on things that matter to you. As you continue to grow, those expectations rise with you. And what once required effort, that just starts to feel normal. Something that used to feel like a stretch, you just automatically assume that you can handle. And as that happens, your relationship to your own progress begins to change. You don't experience it the same way you did early on. You don't fully acknowledge what you've accomplished because your standard has already moved. I remember a time in my business when I hit a level that I had been working towards for a long time. It was something that I had thought about, I planned for, and pushed towards consistently for a long time. And when it happened, I felt it for a second, maybe a minute. But then almost immediately, my mind shifted to what I wanted to do next, how to build on it, how to expand it, what that next level could look like. And once that happened, it no longer felt like something I had achieved. It felt like that's just where I was starting from that point forward. And that shift is subtle, but it really does change things because you can be producing results and doing well and still feel like there's more to do before it fully counts. This happens when your expectations have already moved ahead of your current reality. That's what creates that internal gap. You know what you're capable of, and you know how much potential you have. So your focus naturally orients forward, and over time, that shapes how your success feels. Progress moves quickly, wins register briefly, and then your attention just shifts forward again. There's always another level in front of you. And because that next level is so clear, it just holds more attention than what you've already created. And that creates a very specific internal experience that a lot of people, a lot of high achievers feel, and they don't always have the language for. But here's the thing, you can be proud of what you've built and still feel pulled forward towards more at the same time. You can have results and still feel like you're not fully there yet. And all of that can exist together. When you start to see that clearly, it explains why success doesn't always feel the way you thought it would, even when everything's working. That awareness changes how you experience it. You begin to notice how quickly your expectations rise and how much of that influences what actually registers as success. I see this play out in so many different ways with clients. And once you start to recognize it, you can hear it beneath what they're saying. I'm thinking of a client who had just come off a really strong year in her business. Everything was working, her systems were in place, her results were very consistent, and she created a level of stability that she had been working towards for a really long time. When we were talking about it, she mentioned it briefly and then just moved on straight into what she wanted to improve next. And it wasn't something that she was doing consciously. It was just where her mind went. The focus was already on how to grow, how to expand, and how to make things better. So we really had to slow her down for a minute. And we took some time and actually looked at what she had built, not in a surface level way, but really in great detail. We looked at what had changed for her, what she had already figured out, and she really realized how she was operating so differently than she had even a year before. And as she started talking through it, you could feel the shift. It landed differently, and that's the part that's often missing. I'm also thinking of a client who set a financial goal and reached it, something that had felt really important to him for a long time. And within a short period of time, that number, it just became his new normal. It's just where he was now. So his focus moved forward again, like to what's next? What's the next level? What would it look like to go even further? And when we talked about it, there was very little space where he had actually taken in what he had already done and accomplished. It had already been absorbed into his baseline. And once we brought awareness to that, it didn't change his drive, but it changed how he experienced what he had already created. There was a different level of recognition. And from that place, the next step felt so much more grounded instead of just further away. I often see another version of this with clients who are really growing quickly. They're building momentum, things are expanding for them, and everything is moving forward. But at the same time, there's this underlying sense that they're still trying to catch up to something. And when we unpack that, it's not normally about what they've built. It's how quickly their expectations have adjusted. Their thinking has already moved ahead of their results. So even as things are working, it can still feel like there's more to do before they really count their success that they've had. And once that becomes clear, it really changes how they relate to their own progress. They're still building and moving forward, but now they're able to recognize what's already happening in a way that actually stays with them. And that's where things really start to feel different. This is something I spend a lot of time on with clients. They've already built something successful, and at some point, they start to realize that they don't want to have to keep carrying it the same way as they continue to grow. They want their success to feel different. And that's the work that we do inside the Redefining Success Method Intensive. Inside this program, we spend 6 weeks setting your business up so it continues to move without your attention being pulled back into it all day. This work will help you so you're no longer mentally tracking everything as it moves. You'll start to make decisions and they'll be done. You won't be revisiting them later or second guessing them at the end of the day. When you do this work, you can step away and be fully present, and your business continues without that constant pull on your attention. As you do this work, you will start to notice how much more focus you have as you move throughout your day. You're going to feel so much more productive with your time because your attention isn't being split in so many directions. You will feel more confident in your decisions, and that's going to carry over into how you lead. Most importantly, you're going to be able to be present with your family without part of your mind always being somewhere else. And as you continue with this work and you keep growing, your business is going to feel more and more consistent, and you'll finally have that sense of peace. You'll be operating at a high level, and you know it. So I also do this work in private coaching at a deeper level for clients who want even more personalized support as they continue to grow. So either way, the intensive or one-to-one coaching, if that's something that you've been thinking about, I would love to help you get to your next level. The details for both are in the show notes. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I'll see you in the next episode.